Keir Starmer has landed in hot water. The Labour leader is being accused of cowardice by farmers across the UK after avoiding a heated protest outside the Welsh Labour conference in Llandudno. Angry farmers, armed with tractors and signs, gathered to challenge the controversial inheritance tax changes unveiled in Rachel Reeves's budget. But Starmer's decision to skip the confrontation has only fueled their outrage, with some labelling him as burying his head in the sand. Charles Godby, a prominent farmer and advocate, took to GB News to deliver a blistering critique of both Labour's policy and the government's handling of the issue. His explosive revelations are sending shockwaves through rural communities and beyond.
I think all the way through this, we've just seen cowardly acts by everybody that's in government. They now, I'm sure, realise that their figures are wrong. We've got the evidence to show that they're wrong, but they're just burying their head in the sand. They don't want to admit it. They're just, I don't know.
Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have said that they're just going to keep trying to explain that it's not an unfair law or change, and that actually it won't affect small family farmers, and you're just not understanding or wanting to understand the nitty-gritty of it.
So let me explain. They've based their figures purely on agricultural relief in the year 2021 to 2022. And in that year, there were 1,730 claims for inheritance tax relief, agricultural relief. And based on those figures alone, 73% of farmers would not be affected. But what the government have failed to tell us, and what has come out in a written parliamentary question at the Treasury Select Committee, is that of those 1,730 claims, 45% of them also claimed for business relief as well. And that doesn't include those that claim for business relief without agricultural relief. So actually, the government are basing this policy on figures that don't add up. And they know they don't add up. So I don't know what this is all about, because this is going to impact, and DEFRA have also said this is going to impact far more farmers than they believe.
Keir Starmer's decision to avoid the farmers' protest has ignited widespread criticism, with protesters accusing him of being disconnected from the challenges they face. Hundreds of farmers drove their tractors to the conference, determined to make their voices heard over inheritance tax rules that many believe unfairly target family farms. The proposed changes would impose taxes on farms worth more than £1 million, a threshold that includes the majority of farming businesses, according to industry data. The Treasury, however, insists that 3/4 of farmers will be unaffected, a claim that has been met with scepticism by those on the ground. Farmers argue that the data Labour is using to justify the policy paints an incomplete and misleading picture. Charles Godby's fiery interview on GB News highlighted these flaws, pointing out that Labour has based its projections solely on agricultural relief data from 2021 to 2022, ignoring additional complexities. The figures Labour is using don't reflect reality, Godby said. Of the 1,730 claims for agricultural relief that year, 45% also claimed business relief. And that doesn't even account for those who solely claimed business relief without agricultural relief. The government is ignoring these nuances to push a policy that will devastate rural communities. Farmers have voiced their anger over the potential ripple effects of the inheritance tax changes. For many, their farms are more than just businesses. They are multi-generational legacies that depend on tight profit margins to survive. The tax threshold doesn't account for the high value of equipment, land and infrastructure, all of which are essential to keeping farms operational. Adding insult to injury, Starmer has shown no sign of directly engaging with the farmers who feel most impacted. His decision to stay inside the conference venue while protests raged outside has been seen as a blatant snub. Instead, he used his speech to double down on Labour's stance, calling the changes necessary to fix the economy and insisting that most farmers would not be affected. But his words rang hollow for those outside. One farmer, visibly frustrated, told reporters, "He didn't even bother to come out and listen to us. How can he make decisions for farmers when he doesn't understand what we're going through?" The anger isn't just simmering, it's boiling over. Plans are already in motion for a larger rally in London, where farmers intend to make an even bigger statement. The protest is expected to draw participants from across the country, and some are hinting at more disruptive actions to come. Farmer Joe Hilditch warned in a separate interview that food supply disruptions could be used as a last resort to force the government to listen. "We're not militant, but we have power," she said. "If farmers stop supplying food for even a few days, the shelves will go empty. People need to realise where their food comes from and what will happen if we can't afford to keep producing it." The National Farmers Union has distanced itself from such tactics, emphasising dialogue over disruption. However, they acknowledge the growing frustration among farmers who feel ignored and marginalised by the current political discourse. "The strength of feeling is understandable," an NFU spokesperson said. "Farmers are scared for their livelihoods, and they're looking for ways to make their voices heard. We urge the government to engage constructively with them." Despite the protests and criticism, Starmer has continued to defend the budget changes, framing them as a necessary part of Labour's plan to stabilise the economy. Speaking during his visit to North Wales, he reiterated that most farmers would remain unaffected thanks to exemptions for spouses and farmland. "With the available exemptions, most couples won't pay a penny in inheritance tax," he said. "We're making tough decisions, but they're the right ones to secure the future of this country." But many farmers believe this explanation oversimplifies the realities they face. Social media has been ablaze with criticism of the Labour leader, with hashtags like Starmer snub and Farmers betrayed trending. Photos and videos from the protests have gone viral, with one particularly striking image showing a farmer holding a sign that reads, "This farm has fed families for generations. Labour's tax will destroy it." Even outside the farming community, there's growing concern about the potential ripple effects of Labour's policies. Industry experts warn that imposing heavy taxes on family farms could lead to higher food prices and disruptions in supply chains, compounding the cost of living crisis already gripping the nation. The controversy has also provided ammunition for Labour's political opponents. Conservative Shadow Agriculture Secretary Robert Jenrick accused Starmer of turning his back on rural Britain, stating, "This is a war on farmers. Labour's policies are based on bad data, and it's hard-working families who will suffer the most." Meanwhile, Starmer is focusing his attention on international matters. He has flown to Brazil to attend the G20 summit, where he plans to advocate for continued support for Ukraine. But critics argue that his absence from the domestic debate is a mistake that could alienate a key voting bloc. Farmers have made it clear they won't back down without a fight. They are demanding direct engagement from Starmer, a reassessment of the inheritance tax rules, and a commitment to policies that support rural communities rather than penalising them. The planned rally in London is expected to escalate the pressure, forcing Labour to address the growing unrest or risk a full-blown revolt. As protests gain momentum and public sentiment shifts, the question remains, will Starmer finally face the farmers, or will his perceived indifference cost him crucial support in the next election? Do you think Keir Starmer should have faced the farmers in Llandudno? Is Labour's inheritance tax policy a necessary step or a betrayal of rural Britain? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more updates on this explosive story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We're bringing you every twist and turn in this scandal as it happens.